Uh, Humboldt County Association of Governments Board meeting. This meeting is held in accordance with the Governor's Executive Order N29-20 and will be held virtually until further notice. And can we get a roll call?
Yes, Supervisor Bass. Mayor Jones.
Here.
Mayor Seaman.
Here.
Mayor Hidley. Councilmember Atkins Salazar.
Here.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember West.
Here.
Councilmember Aurora.
Here.
Caltrans Representative Tasha Alstrand.
Here.
And Chair Mike Johnson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our first order of business is to adjourn as the HCOG board and convene as the Policy Advisory Committee. And following that, the presentation by Caltrans on the Eureka Arcata Corridor project with project manager Jeff Pimentel. Is he logged in yet?
He is logged in.
I'm here. Hey, Mike.
Good afternoon.
Are you guys ready for me now? Sorry, I missed that.
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay, so that was all the silence with me. All right, so just a quick update. So we did do on Indianola Undercrossing, we did do an official rejection of bids, and we are going to re-advertise or repackage and re-advertise the project. Those changes will include some additional subsurface investigations that we were previously requiring the contractor to do, and furnishing a design for the column supported and embankment portion of the work, as opposed to having it be more of a design build type element of the project. It was felt that it was in the best interest of the state to reject the bids and repackage and re-advertise for that reason. The contract was a design bid build contract, and however, the column supported and embankment work is typically done around the nation in a design build element. The department just wasn't comfortable moving forward in that direction. So the department felt it was better to actually put out our own design for that portion of the work and have all bidders be bidding on the same work and the same plan for that portion of the work of the project. So as of right now, it looks like we're tentatively scheduled to begin the additional subsurface investigations and geotechnical drilling on September 21st. So that's great news. We've had a lot of our team members from in the district and headquarters that did a lot of shifting of priorities to make that happen. So, and we're expecting to have about 3 to 4 weeks of drilling at this time. Once that takes place, then the soil samples will be sent off to labs for testing to determine the soil capacities and bearing pressures and whatnot, just to get the design criteria for the column supported embankment portion of the work. One way we are planning to expedite that work, some of the tests just take a certain amount of time, especially the consolidation tests for the soil. So we're planning to actually send samples to multiple labs and have multiple labs working concurrently on this testing, so we can expedite and try to shrink the time frame to get the data we need to begin this portion of the design work. We will be continuing to engage with our consultants at Kleinfelder and the Collins Group to assist in the development of this design. I don't have a schedule right now for when we plan to re-advertise. but the project does have a 12-month time frame to award from when we allocated the capital funds for construction. And the allocation on this project was done in May 12th of 21. So we have until May 12th of 2022 to award the project without an extension from the CTC. So the team is working together to kind of back calculate from that date when we would need to have the project ready to list, essentially deliver the project again with a new set of plans. But it's a small portion of the plans that are getting some repackaged. Most of the project is being left alone. So right now, that is tentatively looking like we would need to reach a delivery of the project sometime in February of 22 in order to meet that deadline. But it's uncertain as to whether the consultant and our teams will be able to do the drilling, get the data back from the labs, produce a design, and then package it all by February. But that is the goal at this time. The team is working on reviewing that to see if that's going to be possible. So I'll continue to provide updates here at the board meetings as that develops. I know an agenda item on here. Well, before I shift over to mitigation, I'll just put it out for any questions on the project itself.
Any questions for Jeff?
Yes, Mike, it's Gordon Johnson. Jeff, does the redesign of the embankment, does that take care of all of the bidders' protests that were received at the time of bid?
I guess I'm not clear your question.
Well, at the time of bid, you indicated that each of the bidders had a bidder's protest of one form or another. Does the redesign with Caltrans making the design of the embankment, does that satisfy the bidder's protests?
So I think it will clear up the nature of those protests by providing a design and remove that uncertainty around, one, the contractors were going to have to go out and drill. We were requiring that originally to develop their own information. So they were bidding and basing their costs on a design for a portion of the work they were going to have to develop that they didn't necessarily have the complete data for yet, that they were going to have to go explore further. So that there's some ambiguity there and uncertainty there that we felt that in the best interest of the state for potential claims just was not, set up the way we wanted it to be. So in terms of putting forward a design that all bidders will be bidding on the same design for this portion of the work, we feel that this will create a level playing field. Like I said, it'll be in the best interest of the state in terms of claims and make the contract kind of consistently a design bid build contract without this design bid element that, however, that's typically how it's done. I think in our case, and after talking with our legal team with respect to some of the nuances of California contracting law that appears as though is different here in California than it is for a lot of states, that was the direction recommendation that we received. And so that was really the basis for the decision to move forward the way we are now.
And then a follow-up question, Jeff. Will this action by Caltrans shorten up the time of performance, that is the number of working days allowed for the contract?
It should, because, how it will is we're not going to be requiring the contractor to do the drilling, so that will shorten that time. We are also allowing a certain amount of time for the contractor to furnish their design. And so I believe those two combined timelines were in the order of magnitude of 2 to 3 months. So even though it appears like we have a delay, which we do in getting it awarded, we are taking a certain amount of time that was in the contract and just performing that ourselves. So the delay is actually not quite as substantial as it may seem from when our previous planned award date is to when the actual award date will be.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the questions.
Any other questions? I don't see any. So I guess that's it
Okay.
for that topic.
So I'll roll into the mitigation update. I think last I reported, for the second portion of the mitigation for the Eureka Arcata Corridor project, and just a reminder, it's mitigating the Indianola project we were just discussing, the 3 shop projects that Caltrans initiated, as well as the 2 trail projects, one completed already by City of Arcata, and then the trail project, Bay Trail South, that Humboldt County is currently in final design on. So the second portion of that mitigation is the Spartina eradication at Tulawat Island. We received 1 bid from RCAA. That bid came in substantially higher than the engineer's estimate for that work. We did meet, I think I shared last time that we did meet with RCAA and the Harbor District, because there were a number of assumptions made in that work in terms of number of treatments, how long treatment needs to be done, resource hours in terms of people on the ground doing the work, as well as different methods of doing the work. So with the large discrepancy, we wanted to hone in on what their assumptions were in their bid in relation to how we had estimated that work was going to be done, and that was largely done also with subject matter experts in the field. So I think I shared also Beth was a part of those meetings, and through those discussions, the bid actually was reduced by $750,000. So we were able to reduce it by $750,000, which is positive. But nonetheless, it was still significantly more than the funds that were allocated. So that came down to a deficit of right-of-way capital, which is the types of funds that this work is being paid with, of just under $2.2 million. I broke down, I believe previously, that the shop portion of the project is funding 32% of the work, and the STIP represents 68% of the work. Those percentages are really based on the percentage of wetland impact that the shop project had versus the STIP project had or will have at Indianola. So when you break that down further, the 68% of the funding coming from the STIP, you further break that down into that's made up of ITIP and then HCOG or RIP funding. And the arrangement with the ITIP is that the ITIP is paying for 85% of the STIP portion of the project, and RIP represents 15%. So when you go through those percentages of the overall deficit of about $2.2 million, my calculations take it down to a RIP deficit of about $225,000. And that is the additional need that we have at this time that I believe the board is going to be voting on tonight or this evening. I believe the vote amount that was not to exceed $300,000. And Beth and I in those discussions and with our headquarters programming representatives, these funds don't get debited or the accounting is not done until contract completion. So we won't actually know what that final number is until the project's completed. So Beth and I, through our discussions, and we also presented and shared this with the CAC, is that in light of the calculation being approximately $225,000 is what's needed to remain to deliver and award this contract to RCA to do the work, there could be minor fluctuations, mainly in the Harbor District administrative costs to manage the contract with RCA to do this work. And so we felt that rather than having to come back to the board for a $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 change, we felt that going up to the $300,000 limit not to exceed, and that may fluctuate in that range. But in light of the overall project being 68% STIP and then only 15% of that being RIP, it would have to be a substantial change in cost for us to go from about 225,000 all the way to 300. So we feel that that's a conservative number to vote on and move forward with to be able to award this contract and move on this portion of mitigation that's required for all the projects that I mentioned before. That makes a lot of sense to me because I've been living and breathing this for a long time. So if any of that was confusing, please ask questions and I can try to break that down into simpler terms. But I feel like I was kind of giving percentage upon the percentage, but I saw some heads shaking. Yes, so that's a positive sign.
Well, you seem to have taken it and economically broke it down into digestible format. So thank you for that. Is there any questions for this item?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you for all the numbers. However, I'm not really a numbers gal being an English major, but remind me again the name of the island and what's the nature of the project for the mitigation? What kind of work are you doing? What was the name of the island again?
So I've heard it called Indian Island and Tulawat Island, but it's those are the names I've heard it referenced as, and the work is eradication of Spartina, which is an invasive grass species that the Coastal Commission is allowing us to utilize as mitigation on the project. So formerly, we were going to be actually trying to create additional actual physical wetlands like saline, wetlands. We didn't have the opportunity to create as much as we had hoped to create at a former site, Landseer, that the department owned. And we had negotiated with the Coastal Commission to allow us to do this form of work as mitigation. And the Harbor District happens to have an environmental document to clear that they've done to do this work in the Humboldt Bay. So that's the reason why we are partnering with the Harbor District, and they will be administering the contract through RCAA. And so that's the relationship there. If the board votes to approve the threshold of the additional capital right-of-way dollars on this, then the next move would be going to the Harbor District board meeting on, I believe it's October 14th, to get their approval to move forward with the cooperative agreement and award the contract to RCAA.
Okay.
Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it did. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thanks, welcome.
Any other questions? Don't see any. Thank you for the presentation and the breakdown.
I have some questions.
Oh, I didn't see. Who am I
Can
missing?
I speak?
Have somebody from the public.
Okay. Go ahead.
My name is LaTanya Jacob, and I am wondering if the area is man-made, meaning the land. Do we have problems with erosion? And what is going to be done in that regard? And because of the location of where California is, and I think, I'm not sure, if you're on a fault line due to earthquakes, how would that affect this land? And is it livable land that people can live on? I mean, swampland, yeah, but Indian Island, that's near Samoa. So I'm just trying to get a little bit more information, please.
So the question is it livable land? What would we do about erosion on the land? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, I'm wondering if that's an issue, erosion of the land. Is it man-made, or what if you're growing something on it? I'm not quite clear about the project. I'm trying to get an understanding of the staff of the project, the dynamics, what's involved, what the project is about.
Okay. So you were breaking up a little bit there, but I'll try to answer what I think I heard. So, with regards to erosion, any project that we have, there's always what we call best management practices that need to be put in place anytime that there's any sort of earth disturbing activities. So that's kind of a default into anytime we're doing work that disturbs land, especially when there's water bodies near them. In terms of livable land, suitable land, I'm not sure on that. That's kind of outside the scope of our evaluation of the land and how we're involved with it. Our work is simply to go in and eradicate all the Spartina on the island that's been identified, that multiple agencies have agreed and on eradicating and removing it due to its invasive nature and impact on native habitats in Humboldt Bay. So the expectation is that there would be an ecological lift in habitats in the bay, allowing other habitats that Spartina impinges upon to thrive more. So that's really the basis for our mitigation. But in terms of the livability of the land, suitability of inhabiting the land, I'm not even sure that that's allowed on that parcel, but I'm not sure on that.
Did that answer your question, caller? Maybe she logged off. Is there any other calls
Can
online?
you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I muted myself. It's kind of hard to. I'm working with a cell phone. Okay, so I wanted to answer some of my questions. It says that the area, which is Indian Island, is inhabitable. This is near Samoa, the town of Samoa, which is over in that area. Do we have a problem with the drinking water over there? That's another concern I was wondering about. Yeah, and yes.
That's kind of outside the scope of what our discussion is. We don't handle that part of things. I'll let Mr. Pimentel address that, but I don't think he'll be able to answer that question either.
You're muted, Jeff.
I'm sorry. I was just listening for the. I was just listening. I was listening for the explanation. He said that the gentleman said he couldn't speak on it, and I'm wondering. There's another person that I'm waiting to say something about it, about the drinking water. Is it? I mean, how does that affect the people in Samoa? I mean, how does this area, Indian Island, will affect the people in Samoa? There's a whole development over there, and yeah, people. How is this going to affect them? I mean, it sounds like swampland, and it's something. I mean, because the water over here in Eureka, I don't know. There's something about it that needs to be discussed, explained. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think maybe a good source of information would be, and I can maybe send this to the board, maybe to I don't know if there's a format to distribute this to the public. But there is an environmental document that the Harbor District went through a process to clear this work. Any impacts associated with any type of work are always have to be cleared, via the environmental clearance process, NEPA, CEQA. So this process of evaluating any impacts associated with this work has already been completed. And if there were concerns with any of those elements, that environmental document would have to address those items. So I think that would probably be your best source to get information in terms of the nature of the work and what it would entail. We are essentially operating under an existing environmental document through the Harbor District that they already have clearance on to perform this work in Humboldt Bay. And so I think that's probably going to be the best source of information to answer your questions and concerns on that. As an initial starting point.
Okay, caller.
Do you have?
Thank you for your
do you-
comments, but we are limited to 3 minutes per comment. And the questions, we've exceeded your time. Your questions will be part of the meeting record and entered into that. And your best source of this would probably be the county. But thank you for your comments, and I'm afraid your time is up.
Thank you.
Thanks for your questions.
Is there any other comments online?
I have not received any public comments.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you, Jeff, for your presentation and time answering questions. And we will move on to our next item, which is public comment on non-agenda items. Is there anybody online for that?
I have not received any more requests for public comments on non-agenda items.
All right, thank you. With that, we enter into approval of the meeting record. Has everyone had a chance to look at the meeting record?
I have, and Virginia Bass moves approval of the meeting record.
Adeline Jones seconds.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Mayor Heinley, or Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
PAC member Aurora,
Yes.
PAC member Allstrand,
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you. With that, we come to the consent calendar, which has one item, approval of the City of Arcata's 21-22 LTF claim. Does anybody wish to pull and comment on that? No. Do we have a motion to accept?
I so move. Mayor Jones.
Second, Councilmember Johnson.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent calendar. Can we get another roll call?
Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Aye.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
PAC member Aurora,
Yes.
PAC member Allstrand,
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes.
and thank you. And with that, we'll move into the action items. Item being the Highway 101 mitigation project request for additional RIP shares. Part of the discussion we had at our presentation, a staff report.
Yes, thank you, Chair Jones.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm going to recuse myself for this item. It pertains to my place of employment, and I would be not directly involved, but just to avoid any perception of conflict, I'll recuse myself for this one.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Well, yeah, as you mentioned, Chair Johnson, this is a follow-up to the presentation that Jeff just gave. Caltrans is requesting that we take this action so that they can go ahead and proceed with the contract for this mitigation work that Jeff described. It does impact our shares, our RIP shares, and these are the regional shares that come from the state transportation improvement program. So as you can see in the staff report, I included the amount of shares we're receiving this year. And between those shares and the CRISA shares that are also coming through the same program, we have a little over 5 million available. We did just receive project proposals from the TAC. They were due yesterday. We have a lot of requests for these funds, but the TAC did look at this request coming from Caltrans as well, and they decided that they would like to accommodate this amount or recommend that this amount be accommodated in this cycle, so that when they're making their programming recommendations, they would have an amount of 300,000 set aside for this mitigation project. So that is the recommendation from the TAC, and we're asking the board to vote on that same recommendation. And again, a vote would allow Caltrans to proceed with the contracting. The formal arrangement with it coming through, what's going to be our RTIP, our Regional Transportation Improvement Program, that will happen with a vote in November. So you'll see it in there as part of the RTIP package. But right now, this again is just a motion that would allow Caltrans to go ahead and proceed with the contract. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
Does anybody have a question for this item?
I'm sorry?
I was asking if there are any board members with a question or comment for Executive Director Burks on this item. Hearing none, do we have any public comment on this item?
If you have public comments, now's the time to give it.
I don't understand what the project is about. Could someone please explain?
I think the caller needs to know, I think, that this mitigation project, what mitigation means, and maybe Jeff can go into that. To simplify it, in my mind, it's an offset of the 101 corridor project. The problems that might occur there with the land and the wetlands there is mitigated, means it is let's see, what's a good way of working it so that it sounds right? It's mitigated means that it is offset by doing something else that will help our environment. Already there's 2 trails that have been built in Arcata and Humboldt County. And so now this third project, it's not an actual project in terms of a building or anything. It's an offset. It's offsetting what they are doing on the 101 corridor. If someone can explain it better than that, have at it.
Thanks for doing that. So we're going to hire you, Elaine. Anyway, so there are 3 projects in the corridor. 2 have been completed. 1 is in construction, you may have noticed. So you might notice that there are a number of acceleration, deceleration lanes within the corridor to facilitate in and out movements. Here, I'm going to turn on my camera here. To facilitate in and out movements from the various properties like Mid-City, Motor World, Harper Ford, Break Cut, the old mill site. There's various locations there where we've extended the lanes to merge and get off the highway to those properties, or leaving those properties and merging back on the highway. And then you've also likely noticed we have locations of high tension cable median barrier that's been installed in the median to facilitate or to prevent crossover movements into the opposing lanes of traffic. And then a third project that is currently in construction, the Jacobi Creek and Danon Slough Bridge and Bridge Rail Replacement Project. So currently you'll notice that there is a detour around the southbound Jacobi Creek Bridge where we're replacing that currently, and that'll be done later this year. All of those projects, as well as the Indianola Undercrossing Project, which is scheduled to begin later next year, as well as the City of Arcata's Bay Trail North that's already completed there alongside the highway, and Bay Trail South, which will connect to the trail that City of Arcata terminated out at the break-cut location, and will bring the trail all the way into Eureka, just on the backside of the Target shopping property there. So all of those projects impacted or have or will, if they aren't in construction yet, wetlands in our watershed. And as a requirement for these projects, they must mitigate or replace, sometimes just replace in kind, or offer some type of mitigation that offsets the impact of removing those wetlands. Sometimes it's a permanent removal of the wetlands. Sometimes it's just a temporary impact of the wetlands before we restore them. And we actually have a combination of both on the combination of all of these projects. So at a parcel, or actually 2 or 3 parcels off of Highway 255, last year we started what we call an off-site wetland mitigation project, where we took these Samoa parcels just west of Arcata off Highway 255. We did a significant amount of grading on these parcels that were just being used as agriculture land, grazing cows. And we graded those to allow water to retain on those sites to create what we call habitat for various species of wildlife. That started last year, still in progress. The grading is completed, and we still have planting to take place. So that was one component of the mitigation to offset the impacts to wetlands of all these projects. The second portion of the mitigation is the eradication of Spartina, which, as I mentioned earlier, is an invasive grass species that impacts the ecological kind of quality of habitats in Humboldt Bay. And so that is the portion of work that we're talking about here, where we are needing a little more funding in order to award the contract to have the work completed, where the bids came in a little bit higher than what we anticipated. So this portion of the work will go in, eradicate this species so that other native species of vegetation can flourish and improve the ecological habitats of Humboldt Bay. So I think in a nutshell, that probably pretty well describes the impact and why we're doing what we're doing, and then the result of what we'll do with the mitigation and what it will bring to the community and the habitats for the wildlife that we need to protect when we build projects.
So thank you, caller. I hope that explained the item. And again, this is your 3-minute time limit for this comment is up. And we thank you for your participation. Is there any other board members or any other public comment that would like to be made?
I have not received any other public comment.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion for this item?
Adeline Jones, I move that the HCOG board approve additional regional improvement program shares not to exceed $300,000 for the Spartina removed mitigation associated with the 101 Eureka Arcata Corridor project, and apply it to the 2022 State Transportation Improvement Program cycle.
I'll second that, Bass.
We have a motion and a second.
You said all that.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass?
Yes.
Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Mayor Seaman?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar?
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember West?
Yes.
PAC member Aurora? PAC member Allstrand?
Yes.
And Chair Johnson.
Yes,
Thank you. Motion passes.
and thank you. Our next item is the Regional Transportation Plan update with the administrative draft of the introduction chapter. And I believe that Una will be handling this one.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. This is Stevie Luther, Associate Regional Planner. I'll give the staff report.
Thank you.
And good afternoon, members of the board and members of the PAC. So this is the introduction chapter for the RTP update. It was significantly restructured and written to address the emphasis on climate change, housing, and creating vibrant neighborhoods, safety, and equity. Another administrative change was moving the county demographic info to Chapter 2. And in the staff report, there's a PDF to the 2017 introduction chapter, so you can see all the changes that were made. In addition, we did make edits to the overall goal. And so I'll go ahead and read the proposed language. HCOG's goal is for Humboldt County to have a carbon neutral, multimodal transportation system that is comprehensive, safe, sustainable, and equitable, so that people in the region can travel and move goods by the modes that best suit the individual or business/industry and society at large. So this is coming with review and recommendation for approval by the TAC, and we're asking that the PAC approve the administrative draft for public release. Thank you. I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for your work on that. I did get a chance to go through the staff report, and there's a lot of information in the introductory chapter, and it took a little time and effort to put all that together and to double check and update everything. I did find it interesting that it assumed a 1% growth rate, which is pretty small. But again, it talked about being a target, more or less, but it could be more, or I've heard people talk about climate refugees and people moving into the area. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But is there any other questions from board members at this time or comments?
Mike, this is Councilmember Gordon Johnson. And Stevie, I have a comment or question, page 1-3 of the update admin draft. And the top of the page there, it says that rail service is not planned north, south, or east, west within the RTP's 20-year time frame. We've seen and heard a lot of noise lately about coal trains, which I don't know how serious that would be, but I just want to hear your comments about coal train and that comment in the draft. Thank you.
Stevie, if you'd like, I can jump in here. I think that we don't have anything, we have not anticipated trains resuming, certainly not north-south, and certainly no new trains east-west. That is not anticipated in our planning cycle. In the past, even since I've been with HCOG, the board has expressed support for the Great Redwood Trail and rail banking. So I think that is, from my understanding, the direction that this board has gone. So I think that's why you see it in there, and I think we do want to be clear that we're not anticipating that it's nothing that we've been making any plans for.
Well, thank you. I thought it was a bunch of smoke myself.
Any other comments or questions for this item at the board level?
Once again, I just want to say that the longer I am on the board, the more exciting these things get to read. And I really appreciate the work that's gone into it. And I really like the goals. I think that including the neighborhood vibrancy and the equity and safety and health I just like the goals. So that's it.
Thank you. And I saw the comment item on the rail, and I was figuring probably that at the time that this was being drafted, that hadn't hit the papers yet. So you're right in that it's a late coming item.
Can I ask though, isn't this kind of a vision of what we want, as well as what we expect? So, I mean, if the board is not wishing to pursue rails, then would we not put it in there? I mean, that's what makes sense to me, is that you create the vision based on what the board's direction has been, kind of what Beth was saying. So whether or not they want to bring it in, it's not necessarily what we plan to do.
I would let Executive Director Burks address that, but as far as that could be true, but at this point, I don't even know who has control of the rail. The North Coast Railroad Authority, I don't know if they even exist anymore. And it did go into rail banking, but we'll let Executive Director Burks address that.
Yeah, I believe the rail banking process is still underway, and there's some contention with that, and that's where this coal, proposal came from, was sort of an interruption to the rail banking process. And so, I think a couple things specific to coal and our vision. I think that again we haven't had anything expressed during this regional transportation plan update that is supportive of rail returning. In fact, we do express support for the Great Redwood Trail and commuter trails and multimodal transportation as opposed to the rail returning. And then I would also say just fundamentally coal is just in direct opposition to all the safety and sustainability targets, those greenhouse gas reduction targets that the ad hoc committee works so diligently on. It would just be the exact opposite of that. So I think it is just really, just could not be more polar opposites of direction that we've received so far in terms of the direction we want to be going in pursuing, greenhouse gas reduction, multimodal efforts. I have not perceived any direction towards me to be pro coal or trains by any means. And I think, our position is really solid with the safety and sustainability targets table that we've, reviewed together.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Is there any public comment on this item? I see your hand raised. Caller.
Hello,
Yes.
my name is Latanya Jacob. I will submit my comments in writing. I just want to make sure I have the address as to where to go, where to send them to.
Can I just jump in here, Chair Johnson? 611 I Street, Suite B. That's in Eureka.
Your email address?
Oh, my email address? Yeah, you can send that. You can send that to HCOG to the email address. Latanya, I believe you have my email address. Send that directly to me.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Is there any other comment on this item? Public comment.
I have not received any other public comment.
All right. Thank you for that info. With that, do we have a motion for this item?
Chair Johnson, this is Gordon Johnson, And I move that the PAC recommend to the HCOG board approve the administration draft of the introduction chapter for release as a public draft.
I'll second that. Mayor Seaman.
And thank you. Can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
PAC member Aurora.
Yeah.
PAC member Allstrand,
Yes.
and Chair Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And thank you. And with that, by motion, we will reconvene as the HCOG board and approve the PAC recommendations.
I move that we reconvene as the HCOG board and approve PAC recommendations.
Seconded by Supervisor Bass.
Well, thank you for that. And once again, can we get a roll call?
Supervisor Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Councilmember Gordon Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Chair Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And thank you again. At this time, we come to the HCOG staff and PAC member reports. The first one being the executive director's report.
Thank you, Chair Johnson. So after missing these EPD reports for a couple months, there was an informational item included in your packet that gave the statistics for the EPD miles and hours that they put in from May through August. So I think there was a retirement of one of the staff members there, so we had a little gap in our reporting. But just to share, I know some board members like to know the top speeders, and there was a 34-year-old female from Eureka going 72 miles per hour in July, and August is even more astounding with a 52-year-old male from Iowa, from out of state, going 87 miles per hour on that safety corridor. So those stats in their entirety are included in the packet, but just glad to get those back. Then I did want to mention also that we had, working on our regional transportation plan update, we had a community meeting, a virtual community meeting on Monday. It was attended by we think around 30 to 35 people. It was just, by all accounts, I think we felt like it was a great success. It was fun. We had polling, interactive polling, and we had a chance to do breakout rooms, and just wonderful to get, a chance to have that more rich dialogue with the community. And I think some of the things we heard loud and clear from that, quite a few topics, but I think overall just, really focus on safety and wanting to see HCOG be more involved in educational efforts regarding safety, and also just the multimodal, the people wanting more ways to get around. So I think it was very affirming to what we've already been working on in the RTP update, but again, just wonderful to interact with our community, and I really give a lot of credit to our staff, and we had RCA helping with that as well, and they just did a great job. So thanks to all who worked on that. I also wanted to mention in your meeting packets, there is the Caltrans project book. This was the really tiny print spreadsheet that was included in your packet, and you may be wondering why it was in there. I think we've talked about this might be coming your way for several months now. We should see these about once a quarter, but you'll see this is every Caltrans project that's happening in Humboldt County. So all District 1 projects, but specific to Humboldt County. And the reason we wanted to provide this was to make sure that board members are aware of all the things going on. I will say from my perspective, seeing this was quite humbling, and it makes you realize why you can't just call somebody and be like, hey, can you tell me about that project? Because there are far too many for any one person to know about. So what we'd like to do is have you spend some time with this list. Again, you'll be getting it about once a quarter. And if there are projects on here that you have an interest in, please let me know, and I will work with our Caltrans rep Tasha to get a presentation about that specific project, because it is hard on the fly to be responsive to all of these, and it's hard to also know which ones are the most important to our our diverse board. So please, if you see projects on there that are interesting to you, let me know, and we'll get a report back from the appropriate staff from Caltrans on those. So that was really, I have one other thing to talk about, and that's resuming in-person meetings. So it is time. As far as I know, as of today, I haven't seen any indication that this waiver we've been working on allowing virtual meetings will continue. That could change in the next couple weeks. I just don't know. So right now we need to be prepared to resume in-person meetings in October. We would do that in the City Council chambers in Eureka. It will be my first time having an HCOG meeting there, but I understand that that's where you all met before. My understanding is with their new technology that we would be able to allow for the public to participate virtually or in person. But given Brown Act rules, we all need to be there in person. So that means we don't have the virtual option for the decision makers any longer, unless again something changes. So with that, just a reminder, unless health directives change, that means we'll all be meeting in person next month. We will need to wear a mask indoors. That's for all individuals vaccinated or otherwise, and just be prepared for that. And based on prior direction, if there is a chance to continue virtual meetings and something changes, we'll plan for that instead. But just wanted to give everybody a heads up that that's where we're at as of now. And that would conclude my report. Have any questions?
Are there any questions for Executive Director Burks? It's kind of exciting to think of meeting in person and being able to be in the same room together, and at the same time kind of with the mask thing. But if that's what we have to do, that's what we will do.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for the milestone spreadsheet also. It is kind of interesting to look at that and realize how much work there is going on in our area. So we thank you. With that, we will move to Caltrans Reports.
Hi, yeah, thank you. As far as the milestones list goes, I did want to report that the SHOP project book dashboard has been updated to reflect the approval of the Q4 project book. So that means the project list that you have would be slightly different. It includes all the projects that are expected to be adopted as the 2022 SHOP, and that's all available to the public. So I can have Beth share that link with you so you can take a look at those projects on your own time. I also wanted to give an update on the Broadway Complete Streets project. It consists of pedestrian bicycle improvements along Broadway and Eureka between the Papa and Barkley intersection and Truesdale Street. This project just became the first standalone Complete Streets project programmed by Caltrans at the August California Transportation Commission meeting. The project team is now kicking off the environmental phase of the project. There are a lot of details to be worked out in the coming months, and we plan to work closely with the key partners on those decisions. The project has a fast timeline with 3 years to reach the point of advertising the project to contractors. And project manager Jamie Mattioli will be happy to provide a presentation on the project at a future board meeting if there's interest in that. Also, a quick update on the Broadway Middle Couplet. We've started work on the project initiation document for the Broadway Middle Couplet project that's from Truesdale Street to Del Norte Street. In this plan, southbound Broadway's proposed to follow a new alignment, roughly following the west edge of the existing parcels between Hawthorne and the Bayshore Mall. The northbound Broadway would remain on the current alignment, and it would include transit-only lanes, class 4 bikeways, and improved pedestrian crossings. And there's no identified funding for implementation of the project at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's nice to see that middle couplet moving and work advancing on that project.
I have a quick question for Tasha. I'm wondering about the 299-101 interchange. I don't see a lot of work being done on that. Can you tell me what the progress is on that project?
Unfortunately, I can't. I don't have an answer for you, but I can definitely follow up and have Powell address that and maybe send you an email.
That would be great. Would you have him do that? Because I have a few citizens that have been asking me about that project. It does affect Blue Lake commuters on the 101-299 exchange.
Okay, I'll follow up with you.
Thank you, Tasha.
And thank you. Any other questions on this item? If not, we'll move to other PAC member reports.
I have one.
Yes.
So on HTA's behalf, I want to just share and remind everyone that we have a promotion going with a $50 pass for all systems in the county. It does include Arcata Mad River, and that collaboration's been working well. Some feedback that we frequently get is concern that people have to switch between systems and aren't sure logistically how that works, or have to pay 2 fares, or the transfers aren't as seamless. And so it's been great to test drive something that is for all the systems. So that's still going on, $50 a month, all you can ride. So please share that with folks who commute to your municipality or, those in the community. And additionally, we were able to bring a hydrogen powered bus, an electric hydrogen bus to the area to try out. So some of you may have seen an article in the Las Coast Outpost about it. It was a really good and thorough article about the grant that HTA is pursuing. Pretty significant amount of money through the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program. And so that, if successful, that would allow us to have some new technology in the area that allows for longer range bus trips with, a diminished impact. And there's still some logistics to work out. Being in a remote area, getting the fuel here is its own challenge. But if we're able to be successful moving forward with this grant, then there would be quite a lot of buses to fuel. And so that would help to kind of make it more feasible. So those are a couple of the things happening right now. I'll have likely some more news next month, but I have limited knowledge about hydrogen buses, and I'm working really hard to learn. So I'm not sure if you have questions about that I can fully answer them, but I can take them and get answers for you if you do have them. I just might not have them today.
Any questions for Council Member Arroyo? Don't see any. And it appears that's it. Well, thank you for that. And it's exciting to see that. And if that volume of hydrogen that would be required for 10 buses, if they build out fully, that would make it feasible for the fueling stations for hydrogen vehicles also, that would have an extended range, especially here in the mountainous West. So there's a lot of benefits to that project with HTA. So thank you for that.
Chair, I realized I did forget one more announcement. I had made a note to myself, but I forgot to make it. If you don't mind, I just want to remind you all that one of the benefits of being a member of the Humboldt Transit Authority, a JPA member, is that we generally allow the use of a bus once a year for some kind of municipal public benefit. So for each agency that's a member, and it doesn't get used a lot. But I was just thinking that I'd share that with you all in case the member that's assigned to HTA doesn't always bring that up. So it's certainly an option. In the past, it's been like a legislative field tour or, some community event that was clearly related to the municipality or the agency that's a member. So I'm just putting that out there. It definitely seems like a cool benefit that doesn't always get used.
Well, thank you for that announcement. It does pick my brain a little. I'm thinking. Yeah. All right. Well, if we don't have any other things to report, we will be adjourned. And I don't see anything, so thank you very much. We'll see you all next month, possibly in person.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.